Please silence your cell phones, hold all sidebar conversations to a minimum, and we'll get started with Between the Slides in 3, 2, 1. Hesitation is the enemy. Hesitation allows the moment to pass, the opportunity to be lost, the enemy to get the upper hand. Hesitation turns into cowardice. It stops us from moving forward, from taking initiative, from executing what we know we must. Hesitation defeats us, so we must defeat it. To win, all you have to do is overcome that moment, the waiting, the hesitation, and to do that, all you have to do is go, move, take the action, get out of bed, get your feet on the ground, step forward, do not hesitate, do not wait, go forward, and win. That's a passage from the Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual from Jocko Willink, who I've certainly mentioned quite a few times on the podcast. My guest, Ben Rogers, is another person familiar, and how we met, we'll get into that a bit deeper as well. But we both admire and respect and appreciate and have made life changes based on the influence of Jocko Willink. So if you haven't read the Field Manual, please do. So today we'll get into it on Between the Slides, episode 30, From Real Estate to Real Change with Ben Rogers. Ben, how are you doing today?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me, Kevin. You reading that passage for the Field Manual brings me back. I need to open that thing up again and get going on it again, man. That's good. I love it.
Nice. No kidding. I've definitely hit it walking around on those days you need it on like Spotify and stuff. But yeah, cracking the book itself for me has been a while as well. And I knew, I was like, okay, when Ben's on, I know I'm reading something from there. It's just
That's
a matter
right.
of what, right? Because you could get lost in the whole book. It's fantastic. So again,
yeah, it
folks,
really
if you
is.
haven't gotten it. Ben and I met, I guess it's months ago when we were selling our home and in Hanover, and met through mutual friends. So you'll find through this discussion we've got quite a few connections, and so we met through a few mutual friends, through my wife, through neighbors, and he just wowed us from the start, right? So like I think any home seller or buyer, you should meet with a few realtors, and certainly I'm sure Ben will touch on the professional aspect of that from kind of the consumer layperson selling my home. We met with a couple, and Ben came in prepared, squared away, honest, all the stuff you want in someone that's going to help you spend a whole lot of money or make a little bit of money, or when it's around
make
that much
a little
money.
bit of money. Come on, man. We're trying to make a lot of money.
Yeah, that's true. Make a lot of money. But a home is no joke, and of course, it can depend on how you're emotionally attached to it, which we pretty were, and we'll get into that. But more so, it's it's definitely a business, and he came in that way, but also with a good personal touch. So that's one thing that I know my wife and I really appreciated about how you came into things. So thank you again for that.
Well, thank you for all the kind words, Kevin. You guys, I'm sure this sounds cliche, especially since you asked me to do a podcast with you. But if I had 100 clients like you guys, I would be happy for the rest of my life. Just for people who just really, like you said, appreciate the preparation standpoint. That's what we've built our entire business on, and really what I've kind of built my career on in general. No matter what I want to do, if there's one thing I can control, it's being more prepared than the next guy or the next gal, and that's something that I really hang my hat on. And I'm glad that you guys were one of the many that appreciated that for sure. So thanks for the kind words.
Absolutely. And it was, and the other great fit is, so Wendy has a background in project program management. I have a background in public safety and incident management, showing up places where you don't know someone, where you're selling them your services or they've asked for them, right? And
that's right.
That can go so many different ways. And you have to show them value right away. And in doing that a bit now in project management. So, talking about you and getting in that business and getting into how you do things now. But for you as a person, covering that people aspect, certainly we want to get into. Where are you from, and where'd you grow up, and how'd you get to where you are now?
Sure. So I think one of the things, just from, I guess, an initial sales perspective, when I first spoke to Wendy was the first one I spoke to. I spoke to her on the phone before I spoke to you, Kevin, and she wanted to make sure there was somebody that really knew the area, kind of appreciated and respected the area. And at that point, I already knew, I guess, I had a little bit of a leg up, kind of an easy leg up, I guess, because I'm from Hanover County, which is an area which you guys love, I love. It's near and dear to my heart, and I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but I'll go ahead and admit that I'm definitely a homebody. I love Hanover County, and that kind of it hit a little bit of passion from the beginning anyway. And I'm sure we'll get into this, but I'm not a realtor that loves the idea of real estate. I feel fortunate that I know a lot about it, and I think it's great for me to meet a lot of good people and build a lot of good relationships, and not to mention it's a good financial tool to understand. But the fact that it was in Hanover, that is a part about it that I really did enjoy from the beginning for sure. So I am from Hanover. I was born and raised in Hanover. I went to college about an hour and a half away. I came back, lived in the city for a few years before ultimately settling, buying a house in 2015, probably only about a mile and a half away from where I grew up.
Nice. So quite a transition coming back from the city to Hanover County, West Hanover County, no less.
That's right. Yeah, it was. I mean, I enjoyed living in the city. It was fun, and I tell you, even for my career, it was good to understand the city because being born and raised in Hanover, and I never really stepped foot in the city that often at all. And if I did, it's usually because we were going to dinner with family, and I kind of just used the GPS to get there. I didn't really know much about it, so it was good to learn a little bit. We had a lot of fun. But now I'm almost 1 year married at this time. So our 1 year anniversary is July 7th. So I like being out a little bit, and if we ever want to go and dinner or go meet up with some friends in the city, it's not a far drive or Uber ride in town at all.
Right. I mean, there's some great eats in Richmond too, so that's a good thing. And it's still exploding more and more. I was talking to some other friends we have that still live in that area, and the breweries, all the kind of foodie stuff, and there's just a lot to do out there for sure. So growing up in Hanover, is that how you got into sports and your love of sports and
Sure.
as you were coming up out there?
So my football has been in my family for a long time. I mean, it was the first sport that I knew, the first sport that I loved. I grew up, I believe, maybe 3.5 miles from the field where we practiced football. We practiced in elementary school that wasn't far away, and I started playing football when I was 6 years old. I played all sports. I played basketball, I played baseball, I wrestled for a few years. I was on the swim team, all that kind of stuff. But football was always my love, and we were very, very lucky to grow up, and I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit too, but grow up with such great mentors and such great coaches. I mean, even from the time I was 6 years old playing flag football, we had some coaches then that I would have trusted to have been my college coach. I was just lucky. I mean, I don't know another way to say it. I was just lucky. I think a lot of it has to do from being from a great hometown in Hanover County and just having fathers and mentors who care about raising good, solid, competent young men.
That's outstanding. So it sounds like that was really foundational to kind of where you are now, your organization, your drive, to get after it, to use that term, which certainly makes sense. So, and you mentioned in the high school and college, so you played college ball?
I did, yeah. So I played football from 6 years old through middle school, high school, and then I went on playing college. I played Division III football. I had like the perfect stature for a Division III offensive lineman. I played at 6 foot tall, 265 pounds, and I played center.
Right.
Growing up like everybody, I wanted to be an NFL superstar. I wanted to play in front of the big crowds, all that stuff. I guess it wasn't in God's plans for me to play at that level, and that's okay. At first, I think I carried a bit of a chip on my shoulder for it, which I think is a good thing. And to be honest with you, I consider it a bit of, people ask, what's your greatest failure? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of different things that we can point to that we may have done differently. But I think one of my greatest failures or regrets is that I carried that a little bit too heavily my first few months kind of in my college career. That, man, I shouldn't be here. I should be somewhere else. And there's a whole backstory to that. But once I kind of realized, hey, this is a great opportunity for me, I enjoyed it. There's just nothing but great things to say about the Division III level of football. You get a lot of good guys there, and a lot of people that really care about winning in general and doing the right thing. So it's a great experience for me. I played at Hampton City College for 4 years. We were able to win 2 championships while we were there, so it was a lot of fun.
That's nice. So looking back on that now, do you see the advantage, or rather, just kind of what you said, the perspective of, you've realized finally, okay, I should be here, and then looking back, like there's folks that would have given tons to be where you were, even when you were there, going, oh, I wish I was somewhere else.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of different perspectives that you can look at it from. I mean, as I look back on it, I look back and say, well, if I could have gone and did it again, maybe I would have done this. But if I did that, I wouldn't have this, And so I think either way, we would have made the right attitude. You would have made the best of it or the most of it. But yeah, I mean, while I was there, man, it was great. I met some of my best friends there. And like I said, I mean, we played for 4 years and I lost 5 games. I mean, you can't ask for much better than that, So it was a lot of fun. It gave me an opportunity to lead. We were fortunate to have a much different coach than I was used to. A coach where I grew up in such a a discipline. Most of my high school football coach, most disciplined guy I've ever met, outside of my father, the greatest mentor I've ever had. You get to college and we had a coach who really just kind of turned it all on over to us. You're responsible for yourself. And that taught me a lot about, going back to Jocko, extreme ownership in general. I mean, reading through that book, Extreme Ownership, I'm like, man, I've just went through this, not at the military level, but it's about taking ownership for yourself, your schedule, and getting your priorities in line. So a lot of good stuff I learned there for sure.
It sounds like there was some decentralization going on from the coach,
right?
Which is pretty awesome. Talking about looking back on if this, but then not that, same thing. Like, so when I was in the Navy, I got into a dive med tech program, hard to get into, hard to get through, didn't make it. I'm like, oh, okay, what if I would have made it? I could have gone all this cool high speed stuff. Oh, but then would you have met your wife? Would you have your kids? Would you be where you're at?
Yeah.
And at the time, certainly if it's something, I think the value in that is a lesson. Could you have prepped more? Yep. So take that part with you and prep more for the next thing down the road. But I'm definitely, and we probably, both know plenty of folks who are still holding on to old stuff where they're like, oh, I could have done this and I should have done that. And they let it anchor them down.
Yeah.
And certainly my life had waves of that. But in general, folks have asked, oh, don't you wish you could do this? I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, certainly I want to do things better. But have you found that similar since, you've gotten away from that and gotten to where you are now?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's kind of silly to say things like, live with no regrets, or people who say they have no regrets. Quite honestly, I think they're kind of full of crap. That being said, the regrets that I have, I was able to turn into positives with the right attitude. When I got into the real estate business, for example, I was 22 years old. I went 6 months without selling my first house. And my mother always used, I was probably, I would say average at best basketball player, but I used to have the worst attitude on the basketball court. And so my dad obviously kicked me in shape a little bit there. But Mom used to always tell me, the classic attitude is everything. Pick a good one, And so she had a little sign in the house as you walk out the garage. It's a sign that said, "Attitude is everything. Pick a good one." And because I hadn't sold any houses, I was fortunate to be able to live at home with my parents. But I was living at home with my parents, so I'd walk out, I'd see the sign. I saw the sign one day. Said, you know what? If I don't have the skills yet to meet clients and to sell houses, I'm gonna be the guy that has the right attitude, right? And so that, just seeing that and understanding that and living that has helped me out tremendously. And so you look at things that you say may have been a regret at one time. Yeah, sure, maybe I could have done that differently, but the things that I learned from that, I wouldn't be here without it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think like you said, it's all about perspective. It's all about having the right attitude and taking the good with the bad when certain things happen or certain decisions you make, and taking the good things and turning them into even better things.
Nice. That's so true, and I couldn't agree more. The one thing too that I mentioned, so you were, I'll say it sounds like quite a bit larger than you are now.
Yeah, I was
in college, right? And so the kind of track from, how old are you now?
I'm 29.
Wow, I'm so much older than you. 45. So, so from there, from school, working through, you graduate, were you thinking of getting into real estate right away? You weren't licensed till a little bit after that, right? Or my real estate story, I guess, is a little bit of it sounds very unoriginal, but it's a little bit different than most would expect. Real estate and development and building has been in my family, Kevin, for generations. My grandfather, who I unfortunately never met, he passed away a few months before I was born. He basically developed all of old Mechanicsville. And I think because of that, I very much respected my father and everything I heard from his father. And, but because of that, I didn't want to be the next one. I wanted to do my own thing, and so I never really took an interest to it. And even today, as I've already referenced, and I'll reference it a million times again, I'm not your realtor that loves real estate. I don't. I'll explain to you, why I think it's important to be honest about that later on. But I didn't get into it because I loved real estate. I never took an interest in it. I mentioned earlier that I thought I wanted to play football for the rest of my life. And then when I realized that was a very unlikely possibility, I thought I wanted to coach. And we'll come back to that later as well. But when I decided I wanted to coach, I wasn't sure if I wanted to get into college coaching. It forced me to move all around. I mentioned I'm a homebody. I kind of wanted to stay at home. So I started exploring a couple different career paths that would allow me to still coach
on the side or in addition to or with or whatever. So, I interned a bunch of different places like most people in college, most notably, with some sales reps and some merchandisers at a beer distributor. I interned at a financial advising firm. And then because it was close to home, I interned with a couple of agents at Hometown Realty.
Nice.
And I realized that although it's not about making the most money, and I truly do believe that, being in a job for yourself gives you no ceiling. And that's what I liked about it. Whether it was income, the things you could do, there was truly no ceiling. But I think I also like the fact of the fear that there's no floor. I kind of enjoy that too. It's kind of motivating to me. So it kind of came down to me, do I want to sell real estate or do I want to go into something like financial advising? And I decided on the commission thing in general for one of those two jobs or those two career paths, just because, once again, no ceiling, no floor. I really like that. So when it came down to those two, I think I just like real estate for the simple fact is that you get a project or you get a job and it's your responsibility to complete it, and then you move to the next one. Where something like financial advising is ongoing and ongoing and ongoing, where real estate, you're given a project, you complete it and move on, right?
Okay.
So I did get into real estate right out of college. I mean, I got my, I started studying for my, actually a whole nother story with that, but I actually did some summer classes after my senior year. Actually, I dropped a class second semester of my senior year because we were in a big house fire. So I brought all my schoolwork to my buddy who was in the hospital, who actually ran back in for me. Once again, a whole other story there. So I dropped a class. We could both finish on time. So while I was doing my summer class, I got my real estate license. Finished up summer class, had my real estate license, went to Las Vegas with friends for 3 days, and I came back and started getting after it in mid-July. And I'm actually coming up here on 7 years of the real estate industry.
Dang. So one, I think I heard either like 2 or 3 more podcasts with different storylines.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Or it's just, for me, one, plus as being a firefighter, it's hard to gloss over the fact that you just said you were in a house fire and your friend ran in to get you.
I can't believe I haven't told you this story.
Yeah, so is that something you want to get into?
Sure, yeah.
You can share now. And was that at college?
Yeah, so I don't mind at all. It was January 25th, 2012 at about 4:30 in the morning, which comes back to the time that I wake up because I like to get up before the fire starts every morning. But we had it was my second semester senior year. I lived with 9 guys in the house, and it was an old, crappy wooden house. And I guess it was like a Tuesday night deal. Some guys were up, and I think like a cigarette or something had smoldered in the outside screen porch couch or whatever. And I woke up, 4:30, engulfed in smoke. I was at the top of the stairs. Luckily, I was right by the stairs. And I have, Kevin, I have really, really bad eyesight, terrible eyesight. I mean, if anybody's familiar, my contacts are -7.5. I mean, I can't see anything without my glasses or my contacts. So gotcha. I luckily fell asleep with my glasses on my face. I woke up, stepped to the edge of stairs, and kind of was engulfed and suffocated. And so I guess, found my way out. I ran through the back of the house, and I had second-degree burns on my face. I remember running out, and when I get outside the house, I heard everybody yelling for my friend, who at this time I just thought hadn't got out of the house yet. We turn around, we start making a run back into the house, which now thinking was incredibly stupid. I guess it was just kind of a reaction. And then he burst out the side of the window. Wow. And so we go over and we pick him up. He's got, I just feel bad for him still. But, no skin on his back, basically. Pick him up, put him in the car. We drive him to the practice football field of all places for the helicopter to come pick him up. I learn while we're transporting him in somebody's SUV to the football field, the reason he was in the house because he ran back in for me. That was probably the hardest part for me with all of that, to hear that. But I mean, obviously it's a great story. It's a great thing. I didn't hear him when he came back into the house. I guess we kind of crossed paths, but just the fact that he ran back in because I was still in there is remarkable. I mean, and not to mention he's who I would consider one of my 2 best friends growing up. He's my childhood friend. We never missed a season of football together. So, wow. That was pretty cool. But he was in the hospital for 41 days. I only had to be in there for 48 hours, mainly just for precautionary purposes. Tons of blood transfusions. So I would drive back every Tuesday and Thursday and every weekend, bring him to school, work, drive to class. We could finish on time together, and ended up being a pretty cool story. Wow, no kidding. Tough for sure. And dealing with those tough things. But yeah, it sounds like I'm sure your bond now is pretty unbreakable. And he's he's always been a great friend, and we'll be friends the rest of our lives. But he already was before that. But I mean, it was cool, man, and that contributed to me getting the real estate business for sure. I mean, we got to the hospital in Richmond at MCV. We drove there, and we got there about 7:30 in the morning. The helicopter was already there. Obviously, I went to Hampton, it's an hour and a half away. But by the time we got there, and we were kind of in the ER getting all cleaned up, whatever. I mean, there were by 10 a.m. there were 250 people there with
Wow.
community, Hampton Sydney. I mean, freaking our rival head coach. My other best bud, which I don't know if you guys ever met Kevin. He's now my partner in the real estate business. He drove back from JMU with some of his buddies. I mean, everybody you could imagine came and saw everybody at the hospital. So it was a pretty amazing scene for a bad situation. But I learned right then and there, and I don't want to say take advantage of relationships, but why not use the fact that I have relationships towards growing a life and growing a career? And real estate seemed like a pretty reasonable thing to do with that. I guess I just realized how many people I knew, how many people cared for me, and how many people I cared for.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And honestly, it's a personal challenge I've had where I feel like, I don't want to ask them, I want to do it, or I want to do this or that. But, most everyone, when they say, hey, if you need anything, let me know, like they really mean it.
That's right.
Take advantage of it. To your point, not to the point of where you're taking advantage of them, but certainly leveraging, who you know. And the business world, probably this country's built on networking, with people and kind of know. And don't, did you all think to drive him to the field on your own, or were you there with the responders? Because when you said we just drove him there, I was like, that's amazing. That's like perfect.
We so he burst out the side first bedroom window, and like I said, I remember running over there, kind of grabbed him up under his shoulders from his back, and I just remember like the feel of his basically non-flesh, maybe is that the word, but basically up on my forearms. And somebody pulled their SUV over, and we had to pull him away from the house for starters. Put him in the back of the SUV. We're calling 911, whatever. And I'm assuming that somebody at some point came up with the idea or talked to somebody and said drive him there. But I remember we took him, and his younger brother was a freshman at the time, so I got a ride and sprinted up to his dorm room and got him up and told him what happened. And I'm sure looking back, it was kind of funny. I probably looked like a cartoon character who just had my face like burst into flames. So I had like black soot all covered all my face. My hair was singed back, all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure it scared the hell out of him. But we got him. We brought him with us and all that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. Well, sorry that happened to you all. Good on you all for doing that, and hope he's doing well now.
You wouldn't even know now, man. So, I mean, you can see some scars on his hands. When he takes his shirt off the beach, you can see, but he lives a completely 100% normal life. You would never know. He's got an awesome job, an awesome career, just a great person, great guy, and man, pretty amazing.
Nice. Yeah, and of course, a little biased since I work here, but the place to take him to, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So after school, so you're into real estate. The irony too of the 4:30 time that getting out the 4:30 Jocko time, right? The 4:30 get after time. That's just that's crazy.
It was about 4:30 in the morning, and I know that you're interested in kind of when did I start getting after it, if you will. And I don't really know if that means like when did I start obsessing over Jocko, or when did I start working out hard or whatever. Right. But I kind of settled on the fact that. For the most part, what I have seen or what I've perceived is that for the most part, the majority of people who I would consider successful, they get up early in the morning and get after it. So I decided that 4:10 a.m. is going to be my time, and I just kind of turned that into a little, funny personal motivation tool that I'm going to get up before the fire starts every day. That is kind of a little bit of a relating back to the house fire we were in, but in my business or just in life in general, the fire starts at 8 o'clock. I mean, you get incoming calls, you get outgoing calls. I mean, you name it, anything's happening. And nobody bothered me at 4:10 in the morning. And it's some of the best times of my day.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I have a few times, certainly was in the Navy and on my own ish, more of a 5:30 guy, so lazy, I guess. But it is amazing the buffer you get where you're like, wait, I still have how long before the craziness starts and all that, which is awesome. And then near the end of the day, you're like, oh, I've put in like tons of time, but it definitely makes you feel more accomplished. So the getting up early and then going from 265 to a bit less than that, I would say. How long of a course was that? And
so
was it?
Go ahead.
And was it from? Had you already started kind of slimming, I guess I'll say, or
Yeah.
streamlining or whatever, and then you saw the books and listened and all that kind of stuff, and that kind of kicked it in, or how did that correlate?
Sure. So I guess a little bit of all of that, but more so the latter. It was pretty easy for me to lose weight right after playing football, just from a standpoint of I wasn't lifting heavy anymore. I was done squatting. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm
right.
good. I don't need to do that anymore. More kind of body weight stuff. But so, it was kind of easy to shed 10 or 15 pounds because I wasn't really lifting that hard anymore. I kind of, I guess, settled around 240s, 245, and then in December of 17. I was back up about 250, and I've never really had a problem motivating myself to work out. I could never really find the right workout for myself. I just, until I finally have, I've been working out now at Orange Theory. This fall will be 2 years, and I absolutely love it. And I imagine staying with that for a long time. But I mean, I tried the SEAL team workouts in Richmond. I tried CrossFit. I tried just going to Gold's Gym. I trained at another sports training facility. I would just run outside. I'd go swimming, all these things. And for a larger guy, I was pretty in shape. But I guess until I really bought in and read something that was speaking directly to me, like the field manual, where it says, eat these and do not eat these.
Right.
I guess that finally clicked for me. So, January of 17, December of 17, January of 18, I weighed, I think, 251. And now I took the scales about 209 just because I'm watching when I eat a little better.
Nice. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone you've never met, just some voice, even as an adult male, says it a different way, and even though in your head you know it, and then it's
Right.
like, okay, now I'll pay attention to that.
Yeah, well, and people ask me, man, what did you do differently? I'm like, look, I mean, working out, it's important, and for me, it's more important just mentally, And
Yeah.
I like being in shape. I like being able to say that I can go run a mile or run 2 miles or do whatever, And I like competing from that aspect, but until I guess you believe the fact that sugar is actually poison, it's hard to lose weight.
Right.
I'm not saying that I'm perfect, 'cause I'm not. Friday I'm ready to smash it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Friday and Saturday probably are not very healthy, and they're probably a little extreme in terms of what the amount of food that I eat. But Monday through Thursday, I've become very disciplined with, I guess the fuel, as Jacko would say.
Right. It's amazing I don't know if you follow The Rock on Instagram or anything, but he won, just in a crazy physical specimen, right? 5 or 6, like 260 something.
Yep.
Jacked. And he, obviously, he's got like a house-sized gym everywhere. But when he'll post his cheat day things, and it's like as much sushi as my whole family eats. It's like 3 burgers. It's all these things. And I think I remember an old video that Stallone, from his glory days, from Rocky days, he'd be like, yeah, like during the week, I'm gonna eat just, what you have to eat to be shredded. And then I'm going to eat cheeseburgers like all weekend, because then because the other thing too is you got to have a payoff. And unless you're to the point where it's adversely affecting you, internally, or some, congenital kind of thing.
Sure.
There's got to be that reward too. Yeah. I think.
Yeah, that's right.
It's super hard to stay that strict all the time, and then what am I doing this for?
Right. Well, and look, dieting, losing weight, working out, getting in shape, getting after it, whatever it is. It's really quite simple. Work out, don't eat a lot. Let's be serious. Like, it's right. You shouldn't overload yourself. Yet we still do it, and I still do it, and I'm always going to do it. But I understand the concept, and I finally bought in more than I was buying out. You know what I mean?
Right.
I finally understood that if I can win this 4.5, 5 days a week, I'm going to see some results, and it's really as simple as that. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a dietitian. I just try to be a bit more disciplined more often than I'm not. It's as simple as that.
Right. And I think nowadays the great thing is there's so many resources that, yes, like those folks absolutely have their place, but you don't have to be, because there's so many good resources out there.
Sure.
But yeah, diet for me, something I just had physical and screening and all that, and so my cholesterol is a little bit high from the eating. So I'm like, okay, at least I got the exercise part. So now I'm like, all right, well, less bread, all that kind of stuff. So now I need to, as my age goes up, get tighter in the diet for sure. Which, right. Again, the good thing is there's some really good options, particularly like all the various like jerky things you can choose. Depending on the fats and all that kind of stuff. I'll look at, but I'll definitely get into that. And when I tried like the flavored tuna and all that kind of stuff, like Thai chili or whatever, at least it's tolerable to where
that's right.
Your breath still stinks afterwards and you need some gum, but the flavor is like. you don't have to put a pound of mayonnaise with it to eat it and all that kind of stuff. But
right.
so
I've turned into I got turned on to the bulletproof coffee. I'm a big bulletproof coffee guy. With the it's like the natural grass fed butter, and the what is it, natural grass butter, and it's like what else? Coconut oil or MCT oil.
Oh, wow.
It sounds gross in coffee, but it's like it kind of goes along with the whole keto thing,
Okay.
But it's like, it's like a 300 calorie cup of coffee in the morning, that's what I'll do like on the weekends or something, or a rare weekday morning that I don't work out. I'll just have something like that, just kind of get it started. But I was turned on that by the guy who turned me on to Jocko. His name is Jake Just. He's the youngest of three brothers of the ones that coached us in high school. And he is a Jocko fiend. I've talked to you a little bit about him. He's a jiu-jitsu guy, all that stuff. He's like, dude, nice. You got to try bulletproof coffee. So I just I'm very simple-minded, Kevin. Like, the guy's name is Jake. If Jake tells me to do X, I will go do X. If Jake tells me to do Y, I will go do Y. So
it's good to have those people in your life too.
Yeah, for sure. He's a great accountability partner. He lives in Pennsylvania, but I talk to him a few times a week, kind of on my way home from the gym when he's on the way to work and all that kind of stuff. So it's good.
So, and Bulletproof Coffee is, because we'll give him a shout out, right? That's the brand or the flavor of that coffee?
It's the brand. It's you can like research Bulletproof Coffee. They have a whole blog, a shop, all that stuff. Okay. You can make it yourself too.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a good friend of mine that for I don't know how long, and I don't know if you met him or not, but who was like, hey, you should listen to this guy's podcast. You should really check it out. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And it was Jocko's podcast. And I didn't put it off. And then 1 year we had done a Murph, which I'd been doing. So I'd off and on regular-ish, but still, with other habits that weren't great in the intake. And did a Murph and just felt horrible. I was like lagging. I was last. I was like, this is no good. And I mean, dying when I shouldn't have been. And I was like, all right, that's it. And then I started listening. And the good thing is I had a job, too, that it afforded me where I drove around a lot. So I was like a regional emergency coordinator guy.
Sure.
So I could drive around in the area. So I had tons of time to just plow through Jocko. And then, the thing is, the podcast, like the theme is there, right? Jiu-jitsu, eat better, krill oil, that kind of stuff. That's like in every episode, or it developed more and more as they went from, the early episodes minimal with, hey, go to Amazon to, hey, now I have my own kind of, I don't know if empire is a strong word, but of stuff, right? Line of stuff, I guess is better. But yeah, I put it off so long, and so I at first didn't, and now I've told him this too. Totally credit to that friend pushing, like, "Hey, did you check this? Hey, you should. Hey, this story," and then you do it, and you're like, "Okay," and that life change happens. Yeah, it doesn't happen. We make it happen, obviously, but it's just that little someone else that says it, and you go,
sure.
"Okay, maybe I will get up in the morning and go to Lowe's and install a pipe in the rafters in my shed to do pull-ups and." All those kind of things.
And Kevin, here's the thing. You mentioned the change or whatever. I'm a big if you haven't read him, you got to read some of his stuff. His name is Andy Andrews. He's just an awesome author. He's huge on perspective, but he talks about the idea of change. Right? He says that people think that change is a process or change takes time. Change does not take time. Change is nothing but a decision. Right? And so it's your decision on whether or not you want to change. You can change right now. You just have to decide to do it, and you have to go do it, right? You have to just like it's the whole hesitation theory that you started off the podcast with. You have to get up, get out of bed, get your feet on the ground, and get after it. And it's really I sound like such a football meathead talking like that, but it's so true when it's so simple. That's all it is. I mean, the whole feet on the ground thing. I mean, that's literally, I'm a big handwritten schedule guy. Every day before I leave the office, I'm writing down my schedule for tomorrow, and every single day starts off with 410 FOTG, feet on the ground, every single day. And if my feet are not on the ground before 410, I'm already late. And I'm huge on time lists. I'm huge on being early. We were supposed to start this thing at 3:30. I think we started at 2:58. You know what I mean? And that's just all about being prepared and getting ready. And as Jocko says, get your feet on the ground and get going.
Yeah, totally legit. And same thing, I'll do that each day. Like any meeting I'm coordinating at work or anything, like when the clock hits, like I start talking and we're into it. But it's amazing. Not everyone's like that. It's like, hey, let's, and I can see in some instances, there's some instances where you need to wait for certain folks to join because of who the folks are, we'll say, keeping it generically, right?
Sure.
So we have to do that. But, to your point about like just make the change or decide you want to, some people, and that's one thing where I'm kind of at now, not to, be bad or whatever about it, is some folks are like, oh, I can't, and it's this, and I wish I could do this. And you're like, well, why are you? And I will say now, well, why can't you do that? And, they're complaining about some little thing. And I'm like, but you have running water, right? Because it's like first world problem things.
Right.
Excuse me. And I think about, and I just saw a news clip from a kid who's not drinking water in Africa, but like, every 2 days or something like that, or anywhere, or even somewhere in the U.S. And I think that perspective too, people miss that the starting to make the change that then really becomes the lifestyle of whatever it is you're going to become. Yeah. Will just like, you'll get rid of that kind of stuff, or at least not do it as much.
Right.
Seeing someone at Starbucks waiting like, oh, I had to wait like 2 extra minutes because y'all are busy. And you're like, well, so do you think, you could have just waited 2 extra minutes without having to stay behind to say something to the college kids who are at Starbucks doing their best, or even if they're not, like you're an adult. And I saw this like a month ago. It blew my mind. I just sit there laughing. I'm like, look, I see what's happening here. I take it for what it is, and that's you just got to accept that sometimes. But it blows my mind how hard people think things are. Mm-hmm. One thing, although saying that, one thing I do think is hard is what you do. But I think because of just the volume of, I would imagine at times, the inventory, the competition, the just all those different factors that go into that, so that it sounds like because you got to intern with Hometown, how do you say now an affiliate or a franchise, or how does that work? Because you're your own team, but with Hometown.
Sure. So we're just Hometown Realty. I mean, we call ourselves the Rogers Long Team, powered by Hometown Realty. Gotcha. But every agent on our team is a realtor with Hometown Realty. We have to officially be licensed through DPOR, and I think we have a DBA as the Rogers Long Team. But I mean, we are all our individual realtors. By us being a team, my assistants work for everybody. They're our assistants. They work for everybody. My role in the team is that I lead the team from a management perspective. I delegate the tasks, all those types of things. I refer a lot of business out and get everybody kind of on the right track systematically. But everybody on the team, to really break it down simple, they're realtors with Hometown Realty. They pay into our team to be a part of it and to be a part of our systems, our schedules, our team meetings, all that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. So when you interned getting into there, did y'all have, was it, a standard, kind of interns coming in, hey, here's some tasks or things? Did they have kind of like an onboarding, orientation set up?
Well, Hometown does, absolutely. I mean, that's why Hometown's the best. I mean, we have 325 agents, plus or minus, and we're in the Central Virginia area. We're the largest locally owned firm in the state, wow. And per volume per agent, we are number one by far. We're number two in volume and units, second only to Long & Foster in the Central Virginia area, who has 800 agents. We have 325.
Jeez.
So we're working hard. We have an amazing training. There's training going on every week, every day. The best part about it is that there's so much accountability and so many mentors to reach out to, where the owners give you their cell phones. You can call a manager, you can call a team leader, you can call whoever you want who's kind of been there, done that, still doing it. So that's a really great thing. I mean, as far as me interning at Hometown, it was really more me kind of annoying other agents, and they're trying to figure out what they do. Right. And that's when I kind of learned, hey, this is kind of this is an effort business, and I really enjoyed that. And even when my first few months, and I still do this today, when I wasn't selling anything, I kind of walk around the office because I didn't have anything else to do. And I'd like pop my head in somebody's office. I kind of just look at the person. I'd be like, look, if that guy can do it, I know that I can do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it is. It's an effort business, and I really appreciate that part about it for sure.
That's cool. So how did you all get set up on your own, or kind of in your in your space that you're in now, and as the Rogers Long Team, and then the other thing I wanted to talk about, you mentioned training. How did you get started? Because I know you have these, is it motivating or motivational Mondays?
Yeah, Monday motivation, yeah.
Team build thing and
sure.
Kind of growth thing.
Sure. So I started in July 2012. I didn't close my first deal until, I guess, June of 2012. June is when I guess I started working. I wasn't officially licensed until July. But I closed my first deal December 21st. And then I finally got going. I got signed up with a coach. I bought into the coaching, learning from others, all that kind of stuff. I'm a big believer in it. If somebody has been there and done that and become successful and they're telling you how to do it, shut up and listen. I mean, I truly believe that right now.
Right.
There's different ways to improvise and do things your own way. But if somebody's telling you how they did it and it worked, listen, right? And so I started kind of modeling my business after some others and then kind of put my own little twist on it. And then my second full calendar year in 2013, I was 23 years old, and I closed 25 real estate deals.
Wow.
So then going into, and it was an effort thing, man. I'm telling you, there's no handouts, no freebies. It was an effort thing. I worked, I competed, I interviewed, all that kind of stuff, and I'm still doing that today. But middle of 2014, one of my other best friend, Kevin, we had both started selling real estate at the same time, just separately. Because we had such a similar natural center of influence, we were starting to lose a couple of clients who didn't want to have to make a decision between us on who to use. And that combined with the fact that he needed a little bit more business, I needed a little bit of help with the business that I had, and he really excelled with working with buyers. And I did not like working with buyers. And so and where I found more success working with sellers, much like you guys over there off Chriswood. But so he came on as the buyer's agent. He worked with all buyers, started in 2014, hired my first assistant in 2015, brought on a second teammate in 2016, December 2016, I guess a third teammate next to Kevin, then a fourth agent in February of 18, and then a second assistant in the September 4th of this past year in 2018.
Wow.
So we have 6 people, 4 agents, 6 people. We do about 100 deals a year. Most recently in 2018, we did over 28 million in volume, and this year hope to surpass 30.
Seems like a good sign when you are staffing up. Anyway, right?
Yeah, well,
that's good.
And I'll tell you this, man, I mean this in all due respect. Our second assistant, I didn't feel overwhelmed with work to where I needed an assistant. I love her so much, and she's such a good supporter and promoter of our team. I wanted her to be a part of our army. It's as simple as that. She wanted to be a part of us. I wanted her to be a part of us. And her presence it doesn't, her pay does not matter. Her presence is what we want and what we need, and I wanted her to be a part of it. And now that she's here, she understands, she gets it, and she's obviously helping us out a ton. That's what we're about. That's what we're about over here. We're about culture. I don't think I have the goals and the dreams to be the best realtor or most productive or sell the most houses of any realtor that's ever walked the face of this planet. I love my team. I love the way we work. We make a big impact. And, our mission is to build an army of people that does good, becomes better, and strives to be the best. That's what we're doing every day.
That's fantastic. And you'll see variation in companies, right, where you have to have this checklist of skills, and then that overbalances the culture fit, or okay, you have to have a culture fit, but you have, let's say, none, or then it's, okay, the leadership evaluation of someone to look, they're going to make our place better, and we'll figure out the rest is pretty
right.
awesome. And it's actually similar, which is cool, the opportunity we're in Blacksburg, and so where Wendy works, similar, it seems, and talk to that, or in how they look at things, right? So in IT, though, I mean, you still have to have a bit of a set, but if you're not quite to every box checked, but you are going to get along with folks, and you're not going to be a negative vibe coming in because you think you know it all coming in there. That's huge, and that sounds awesome. Is it one thing too? Is it? I don't know if there's a standard or normal, but kind of the split you mentioned where you specialize in the sellers and your partner in the buyers. Do many realtors or agents do that, or do you have a lot that do?
It depends. I mean, a normal, I guess, growth for an agent, or not normal, but probably more often than not, is you bring on a buyer's agent, because buyers typically take more time, right? So you bring on a buyer's agent, work with buyers, so you can focus on generating the business, running the show, that kind of stuff, running more listing appointments. But that's just the way we've kind of split up. Now we're kind of more where I'm the team leader. He's the lead agent. So he kind of supervises we separate between business and jobs. Jobs is more of the customer service, the buying, the selling, the showing, the listing, all that kind of stuff. Where I'm more in terms of managing, generating, organizing, creating and maintaining the culture, running the team meetings. Those are things that I excel in, what I really like, where he's much better with the actual client, where I'll work with a few clients here and there, depending on if they're strong referrals. So you guys, obviously, for example, being referred by what I consider an A+ of our past clients, I'm going full-fledged on that one. I don't really need to bring anybody else in. So it's very situational, but, now we're kind of more split between team leader and then the lead agent. But to our first few clients and our natural center of influence, they'll look at me as working with sellers and him working with buyers, and we're cool with that.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Yeah. Earlier, I wondered when you mentioned the staff up in Who's Who, I was like, well, how do we end up with you?
Right.
So, it's cool to know that networking, right? It pays off. Right. It made a huge difference and worked out. I think.
Well, and I mean, cool. Let's be serious. If I get referred to somebody that sounds like a good person, they live somewhere in an area that I like working in, that's where I actually enjoy the part of working with them. You know what I mean? And like I said, they're referred by what I consider an A+, but a past client that has become a great friend, a great accountability partner. They were great clients. They're great people for me to refer to. They refer me a lot. I'm working that one all the way through for sure.
That's awesome. So for your team, those motivational Mondays, those you leading the meetings, those kind of things, how did that come about, and what's the, in the word you can kind of tell, but what's the premise or kind of how you've done that a lot?
Sure. So there is, I have a coach, and we talk a lot. We've gotten into a point where we're big on kind of the leadership growth, right? And so we talk about three rings of leadership. Okay, there's 3 rings of leadership. It'd be fundamentally exceptional, right? Fundamentally exceptional in our business is understanding contract writing, negotiating, generating business, networking, those types of things, right? The second part is going to be creating culture. Right? What's your mission? What are your core values? With clear values, you don't have to guess, right? Those types of things. And then, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. You're talking about fundamentally exceptional, creating culture, and the last ring is going to be personal growth and development. So, for me personally, I'm really diving in. I have been diving into the personal growth and development because I feel like we have a great culture. We do feel as if we're fundamentally exceptional, but personal growth and development, I think it's important for people to read, to listen, to write, those types of things. So every Monday we go in order. Somebody else has a different responsibility for Monday motivation. And even if it's just the 6 people on our team that listen to it and read it, to me, that's beneficial, right? I hope somebody reads it online, it makes their day or whatever. But the fact that somebody took the effort for 30 minutes to an hour to read something, pull something out of it, and write a very quick excerpt or a quick blog about it, that's important. It gets our day started off on the right foot. And it's just cool to kind of, in our meetings, we obviously talk about real estate. We obviously talk about clients, upcoming events, things like that. But why are we having a team meeting if we're not going to be in there to have positive attitudes and develop a little bit of a culture and have a little bit of motivation on a Monday? Right.
That's a great concept. In fact, now I'm going to have to ask my boss, our project management office director, if she had the same concept, because we do hey, who wants to read the article and give us the scoop about it? Which is great because, you don't know. It's not, hey, it has to be like in this column of topics other than kind of project management related, but that could go anywhere really. So it is cool, and it does it automatically, because one, either people are quiet because they don't agree with your review or your thoughts on it, or it's like, oh yeah, and then kind of get that bonding thing and that kind of stuff, which is cool.
Well, and look, we were talking earlier about kind of bringing somebody on for their skills or for their attitude. I hire or bring people on or work with people because of their attitude. We can teach the skills, man. That's easy. I have 3 requirements. That's it. Positive attitude. Understand that your presence is your greatest attribute, meaning that face-to-face and voice-to-voice are the most effective forms of communication, and you're going to be earlier on time every time, period. Number 3, relationships are always going to be more important than transactions. I would much rather have a better relationship with you, Kevin Pennell, than go and do 40 deals that all drive me crazy, right? So in every single meeting, we talk about those core values, and everybody on our team is bought in. They believe in it, and that's what makes us happy, man. We're doing fine. We want to keep working. We want to keep growing. We want to keep selling, all those things. But if everybody understands that attitude, presence, and relationships are our core values, and you understand that you have those clear values, you're never really going to have to guess in any decision-making situation.
True, and that relationship, not just word, but building, all that kind of stuff, and what you're talking about. And, a lot of, like we mentioned, Jocko's work. And then in the all hazards management world that I lived in for a bit, same thing. One of our team leads would always say, look, It's relationships over process, because when you show up in someone's worst day when an area is flooded out, you're not going to pull out your giant planning P that follows them through a process when they're worried about, you know, people's grandmothers that can't get food. You're going to build those relationships, and then you'll try and work in something that's helpful, and that's it, right? And then if you can get what the book says or what, you know, we should do per the golden standard, so to speak, then awesome. But really, it's going to be about, one, you're representing yourself, and then organization and all that kind of stuff anyway. So how you interact, you know, matters with you and them. So it's always interesting to see. And like we talked about earlier with just doing better, eating better, that kind of stuff, even relationship building, team building, the concepts are cross-cutting in like every industry I've ever either read about or been part of or seen or something like that. It is interesting how you put them together, though, and how you can apply them. So it's interesting how you do that.
And you have to dive in to understand each person on your team. And I was talking to a coach. He's offense coordinator at William & Mary in Williamsburg for their football team, and he said that to properly implement a system or a scheduler, implementation in general, it hinges on winning the hearts of your teammates and winning the hearts of your players, right? And so we have team meetings, and every Monday, you know, we start off as, look, last week is over. I want to hear everybody's complain one last time. Let's hear one last complaint. Everybody shares one last complaint. Then, okay, let's share one last celebration. What's one good thing that you want to celebrate about one more time? And we rip the top page of that sheet out, and we throw it in the trash can. Then we move on to the focus for this week, and we prioritize and execute, pulling straight from Jocko. Nice. Every week works like that. We get to we get to learn a little about each other, because it might be personal stuff, it might be business stuff, whatever it is. But that's how we really win over the hearts of our teammates, and that allows us to really implement and work how we want to work.
Did you adapt that as you brought on more staff, and then did you see when you started doing that a difference between kind of before that was a regular practice and afterwards?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm always, if you're not growing, you're dying. I mean, and so we're always trying to add cool things, do different things, trying to kind of pull on the heartstrings a little bit, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, we've implemented that stuff as we've gone along. But you know, for quite a while, we've been doing Monday motivation for quite a while. We've been saying something positive at the end of our meetings before we get on with our day. I mean, there's so many bad, crappy, challenging, annoying things that happen in the residential real estate business, for that matter, right. That we got to say something positive going into the day. You know what I mean? Right. So yeah, those things have definitely evolved over time, but I've felt as if we've always been kind of a culture-driven team, for sure.
You know, it's interesting you say that in the real estate business. I think two things that came to mind as far as when human nature changes or comes out, I'll say, is when people are buying, selling homes and being part of the transaction, and when people are driving their cars.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
I'll see people driving cars with, you know, and for whatever religion, in peace, and let's all get along, and they drive like an animal, and they're a horrible person behind the wheel. I'm going, what are you doing? Like, I'm just going to pull up and pull that off just so you're not, you know, being just irony to yourself.
That's right.
But then the same thing dealing with folks in, you're either buying from or selling to or something. It's amazing. And we had tons of talks and texts, you know, throughout our transaction, but it's amazing when you get into it. And we were fortunate too, the folks that did buy our house, they were great and easy to work with. And especially when we found out we had a lot more stuff than we thought we did. Right. We're like, we left this and that. But some folks, it's like the world is going to stop because the $5 door handle, they don't want to replace it. And you're going, what? But it's just interesting, that human nature.
Kevin, I know. I
know. I'm preaching to the choir, but you know, just having gone through that, and then when you said it, the other thing I thought of, just watching people drive, and you're just like, oh my God, how are you a human? You could add maybe in the grocery store, leaving your cards out or something like that.
That's right.
So many examples, unfortunately.
Sure. Yeah.
So when did you start? Because you're also a podcaster. When did you start the Bottom Line? And I definitely checked out your website, your realtor website, which is cool because it's got everything on there, which also speaks to, you know, it's all together. Everybody's all in with whatever somebody else is doing, is the impression I get when I see, you know, a podcast.
Happy to hear that.
I guess from the outside, like, isn't everyone's podcast, so to speak, right? Like it's clear, like with Ben Rogers, but it's on your organization's website, and that's awesome, right? And then you see the money motivation, all that kind of stuff. So does that go along with, what was the inspiration for you starting that and the focus of it?
So very selfishly, and I guess on the surface, I have a craving to talk about and participate and want to be involved in sports, specifically football. I mean, I'm just a football meathead. I love football. I don't really know another way to explain it.
Who's your team? Your pro team?
I'm sorry?
Who's your pro team? Sorry.
I grew up a Redskins fan. A sad Redskins fan. My little brother got drafted in 2017 to the Rams, and he's not with them right now. But that at least gave me a reason to part ways a little bit emotionally with the Redskins.
Right.
So I obviously still follow them a little bit. But to be quite honest with you, I really don't even have a favorite team I could tell you right now.
Gotcha.
I mean, I guess if I had to be, I would tell you the Redskins. That's an easy answer, But I'm not nearly as gung ho as I used to be.
Gotcha.
But anyway, so I wanted to do something a little bit more with sports, and I really realized that any kind of passion or system or organization or skill, whatever I have that I've brought over into my business, I learned from the game of football, and I learned from my coaches. And in my podcast, we talk to coaches, educators, and other leaders. So usually they're football coaches, baseball coaches, just leaders in a sport or leaders in their business, and a lot of it all links lessons learned from sports, business, and life. So that's what it's all about.
Nice. And how long have you been doing that?
March 2017 is when I started it. I was up to maybe 30-some episodes, and what I actually did is I refined it a little bit. I wanted to just focus it on the coaches and the educators, so I kind of trimmed some. I did some with like some business owners, and they're a lot of fun. I still have them saved and all that kind of stuff, but I wanted my podcast specifically focused on coaches and educators. I just felt like that was kind of more my niche, and as much as I would love to do one podcast a week or one a month, at this point, I'm trying to find the right people that I want to talk to when they want to talk to me. And so I think this year maybe recorded 4 of them. But I've done some really cool ones this year, gone to some different schools. I even traveled to UVA for one. I traveled up to Pittsburgh for one. Just kind of some relationships and connections I have. And it's been a lot of fun, man.
That's awesome. Yeah, it is interesting when you think about, like, you get started. And I started in September of last year. Thinking, because I used to love teaching, so I used to go around and teach incident management and some other stuff. And I was like, you know what? Here's the way. I'm getting out of public safety, getting into private sector, taking a break, that kind of stuff. Or just out of it for all great reasons. And but this podcast medium is amazing. How you can push out and share. I mean, both that we've benefited from, like we talked about, and then how you can push stuff out and share, almost like however you want. Which
sure.
is, and it's weird at first when you're sitting there by yourself, and then you talk to somebody else, and then you go through these whole things.
I mean, here's the thing, man. It still is a little bit weird, especially from a standpoint of, like, some friends or whatever. Like, man, you got a podcast? Like, that's weird. I think I'm weird for doing a podcast with you right now. I'm like, whatever. Like, I've done worse things in my life, but it's you're right. It's cool, and I tell you, very selfishly, I learn every time I do one. I learn more about myself. I learn more about somebody else. I pull a tidbit from it that's great. What I shared from you earlier about, the first step to implementation is winning the hearts of your teammates and your players. I mean, that was from a podcast I did with a guy. You know what I mean?
Nice.
I learned, and it helps me with speaking and writing and reading and understanding and all those types of things. So it's been good, man, for sure. It's been a lot of fun.
Right. Yeah, that's a huge difference, getting past the ums and ahs and all that. And then when you enunciate in a meeting, you're like, wow, that really did make a difference.
Right, that's right.
And getting through things like that.
I'll get a text every so often from somebody like, hey man, I got a call from a guy that he's a close family friend, and at one point when I was coaching high school football, he was a player, and he called me about a month ago and just said, hey, I just want to tell you I listened to X, Y, and Z podcasts, and I thought they're great. I learned a lot from it. I thought that guest was awesome. I thought you did well, all this, and I was like, hey man, that's pretty cool. I appreciate the call, and that right. To hear that I made an impact just on one person was enough for me to keep doing it,
Right. I mean, that is the payoff for sure, is you put this out into the ether of the giant 600-something thousand podcasts, which is crazy in itself. Right. And then somebody, especially that, because there's some folks that are like, yeah, I didn't listen to that because it's not quite their niche or whatever, whatever. But that's just an amazing feedback to do. Did you ever think about, because I know I did, and I don't know if every podcaster does or not, thinking about, hey, I want to build this up. I want to get sponsors. I want to do this like forever, like the pie in the sky.
Yeah, I mean, like that would be cool to be a professional podcaster, I guess. Have I thought about that? Yeah, of course. I mean, I've thought about a lot of things, but here's the thing. The podcast for me is a good supplement for me to continue on my path and my journey of personal growth and development. Where that leads to, Kevin, I'm not sure. but right now I enjoy it. It fulfills a passion that I have in connecting sports, business, and life all together. And I feel like I'm helping a couple people out along the way. And so we'll kind of see where it goes,
Awesome. That's cool. And so you're also helping folks out in other ways outside the podcast, right? In addition
Sure.
to,
So
like, outside the realty space even.
So one thing I want to be sure I'm clear with, I'm not the guy that opens up a suit jacket and has all these different gadgets for sale. Okay, my career is leading a real estate team, and I have a very strong desire and passion for coaching others. I love the coaching aspect. I love the teaching aspect. I love the learning, all that kind of stuff. And so the podcast was kind of a way for me to kind of get along the path that I'm on now, and that's coaching and helping other business owners, and really more specifically, or I guess more broadly, team leaders in general. A pipe dream of mine is to advise and help and coach football programs and football coaches, head coaches. It's Division III programs, Division I programs, NFL coaches, whatever it is, and it's really all based on the structure, the systems, and the schedules the team leaders use. So that going from the podcast, it's called the Bottom Line Coaching Company, and the reason it's called the Bottom Line is because I truly believe that preparation and practice is more than the game. That's the bottom line to everything. I believe is that practice and preparation are more important. And so I have 4 clients. It's just a consulting coaching business, and it's something, no offense, I loved meeting with you and Wendy for the first time, but
sure.
What really gets me going and gets my juices flowing is helping a business owner accomplish their goal of kind of trying to become more structured and more systematic in what they're doing. My probably largest pet peeve is that somebody is too busy, or they don't have enough time, or they're late. Somebody being late, kill me. It's incredibly infuriating and annoying because it's all you can control that, right? And so I've kind of set out on this mission to eliminate that as an excuse. And so that's what structure, systems, and schedules are all about, for sure.
That's awesome. And so in line again, parallels and leadership and incident management has this whole set of structures, but the payoff is when you are teaching somebody that's like, in the beginning, I don't know how in the world I can do this. I can't do what you do. It's so hard. It's so difficult. And then you give them some tools. You talk to them, and they're like, "Oh!" And when you see the bing, it's pretty amazing. It sounds like that's opportunity you have with leaders of teams and companies and stuff like that. And so,
sure.
Sorry, bumping the table here. And so when you get in there, is it typically folks that are looking for, like if it's a leader for themselves, that then obviously that will help their teams, or kind of full teams, or a mix of that?
It's a mix of all of it, man. I mean, another thing too that I'm kind of hitting on a selfish want, I guess, if you will, is that, like, I want something else to do outside of real estate. I enjoy real estate. We're good at it. We treat our clients right, and we believe in all that stuff. But I could definitely, I am going to be working with a couple of real estate teams here coming up, and a couple of real estate agents just with their personal schedules. Organizations. I think you mentioned something about a skill set. I mean, I'm an organized guy. That's one of my skill sets, But I've enjoyed the fact of being able to work with other businesses that have been a lot of fun. So it's typically team leaders of 1 to 20 who need help kind of creating and maintaining a culture, getting everybody on the same schedule. The 2 things, if I could like guarantee a client they'll receive from me, is the implementation of what I refer to as a stapled calendar and more efficient team meetings. So I'll help with team meeting agendas. But to get to any of that, I got to understand the structure of the team. That's got to be transparent and shared with everybody, so everybody knows the expectations and responsibilities. Understand the systems from generating business, receiving business, selling, producing, completing. All of those things work together in order to keep a business going. And then finally, a schedule. If you don't have a staple calendar or something you do at the same time every day, for example, FOTG 4:10 a.m., I do it every day. That's a start to a day. A lot of people, it's 4:10 p.m. right now. It's really weird. A lot of people don't have that. There's some really on paper successful teams who don't have team meetings weekly, and that's mind-boggling to me. I don't understand that. And you can see when you meet with them, they feel disorganized, they feel inefficient. Their hair's on fire. They're not sure what's going on. Well, if we can just implement one team meeting, it's going to make a big difference. And so I've really, really enjoyed that, man. It's been a lot of fun doing it so far.
It sounds like it. And so it sounds like you have to do kind of similar to like a workflow analysis and kind of shadow them and see what's going on, in addition to them telling you, hey, here's how we do things.
Yeah.
Do you supplement with that, being able to see kind of the work of the business and how everything goes through there in person?
Yeah, and I guess especially right now, they're all in-person meetings, and I know these people already. I haven't worked with many, or I haven't really started to advertise or ask for too much business. There are people who have kind of already sought my help from an organizational perspective anyway.
Nice.
So I kind of already knew a lot about it, but I guess the way, if you're asking how the business works, it starts with a 2-hour intro session where they learn more about me, my coach company, why I'm doing it, what I can help with, some success stories. And then I ask a bunch of questions regarding structure, systems, and schedules.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
it sounds like a carryover from getting good mentorship from when you're a high school football player through all the stuff you went through. That
well,
you
yeah, I
put
mean,
in place yourself.
I feel this responsibility, Kevin, too. I've realized that not everybody was as fortunate I was to have these great mentors and have these great coaches and have these great teachers. And I truly feel bad for the people that didn't. And I feel this responsibility to go share the lessons I've learned with them. And that's what I'm doing.
And there's, we talked about human nature, the things, but in the area of folks that weren't as lucky or fortunate, you do see that a lot, actually. Folks where the small, what we consider, I would say, generally smaller things, are just these huge challenges. And it is amazing the disparity between folks when you do have good leadership growing up or good parenting, right? Same kind of thing. And when you don't, and how folks turn out. And I remember distinctly when I was younger, probably some news story or something like that, and younger meaning like I didn't know what the heck I was talking about, talking to my dad, stories about kids that grew up and did bad things because their parents were bad to them. I was like, oh, you just got to think right and do the right thing. And being older, I'm like, you were dumb. Like, that's why your dad said people grow up with hardships and it changes. And it was like, I think it was probably a, preteen. I just wasn't having it. I was like, I know what I'm doing. I've been in this world long enough or whatever. Right. But it's amazing seeing the difference that makes in teams daily. Of course, the theme of good leadership makes a huge difference. No bad teams, only good leaders. Quoting again, the Jocko. But yeah, that sounds like, though, for you were helping shore up, if there is where you go, leadership issues, them, and they're for sure they're going to proliferate that to their teams, which is pretty awesome, and be more productive personally and professionally too. Because I think that, and would love to hear your thoughts too, that you can't really be that good professionally if personally you're not developing yourself. Yep. And they're, they go hand in hand, and you do see a mix of that, both mentally, physically, efficiency, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, all this. I mean, you got to take care of yourself first, obviously. I mean, the mission of the Bottom Line Coaching Company is to. I'm big on the building the army thing, if you can't tell, but it's to build an army of disciplined leaders that want to be present and positively impacts their relationships, both personally and professionally. We want to be present. We want to positively affect others, both personally and professionally. But if you're not doing that for yourself first, it's really difficult to do it for others, for sure.
That's awesome. So we're pushing an hour and 6, man. Strong. It is wild that we hit the same time in the PM. And interesting, what you've done way more interviews than me. This is, I think, my 5th total. This is our 30th episode, by the way. So thanks for kind of milestoning it. But you eat up some time, especially when you're just chatting with a friend and then getting into things. And I, organization wise, and you gave great advice. I'm like, hey, here's a wireframe outline, and here's what I'd like to kind of hit on to try and hit more I'm big on and similar, there's like these, climate leadership things, and there's all these things other places. And for me, these like foundational 4 things of, hey, let's get some objective, let's get an org chart that's one team together, let's get resources, and let's communicate. And so thinking about, okay, how do we apply that in the podcast or anything else, and trying to go, okay, here's generally kind of what I'm thinking, but being dynamic enough to go, hey, you know what, what your great advice was, let's have less prep for you, essentially, as the guest, right? And just talk to somebody, which certainly is there.
It's like anything, Kevin. I mean, anybody who has a schedule, I look at it like this. If you're driving down a road, all right, and you have the double lines in the middle, right? And you are driving on one side of the road and you have a lane to stay in, your mind can wander a little bit because you have a framework to work within, right? If you were driving down a road without the lines, you're going all over the place. You're concentration has to be just kind of like right you're the whole time, right? You really got to make sure you're focused. But if you have just a little bit of a framework, it allows you flexibility within between. It kind of goes back to discipline equals freedom, right? The more discipline we are within a certain framework, the more freedom we're going to have within it.
Gotcha. That makes total sense.
Yeah,
Anything you want to share with folks listening with kind of anything else you're up to, or any advice, any other way that they can make progress like you have, which is a theme which makes sense just in life is hard work. There's no getting around it. So
yeah,
no one that's listening is going to make progress.
I would say this: if I could give anybody one piece of advice, whether they're feeling, I'm big on the whole theme to the podcast I have is average sits on the bench, right? If you're feeling mediocre, if you feel like you need to get going or whatever, get a coach, find an accountability partner. There's no excuse not to have a coach, or at the very least an accountability partner. I've had a coach since 2013, a career coach, and it's been absolutely awesome. And now that's a passion of mine that I want to go help coach and teach and train others. So if there's one piece of advice I give, it's go get a coach for sure. And once again, I mentioned this at the very beginning. It sounds so cliche, but there's absolutely nothing in the world that you can get done efficiently and productively or whatever without having the right head on your shoulders and having a good attitude. So I would say if there's any piece of advice I give, it's get a coach or an accountability partner and make sure you have a positive attitude, because in any situation, your perspective is going to rule all.
How did you actively seek that, and did you know the person that coaches you now already from your previous life, and what are kind of resources that you know of that folks can do to find their coach? I'm sure there's a bunch of companies out there, or you,
sure,
or other folks, but for you, how did you do that?
Sure. So for me, my coach is part of a big real estate organization called Buffini & Company. They're based out of California. They coach probably, I think it's 70% realtors, but other small business owners as well. Oh, wow. It's all relational referral system, and just like you guys referred to me. It's all based on referral marketing. But I'm in the one-to-one coaching program, which gets, I think life coaching is kind of a cheesy word or a cheesy phrase. But I guess it's kind of like that. I mean, we talk a lot about finances. We talk a lot about generating business. We talk about event planning. We talk about all those types of things. I mean, right now it's fun because he's training and coaching me on how to become a coach. I mean, that's pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was through real estate. For anybody else, it depends on if you're looking for more of, I guess, the life coach counselor type thing, or if you're looking more for somebody for business. I know, the types of clients that I'm personally looking for and open to talking to are team leaders, people who lead teams of 1 to 20 or maybe a little more, who really feel as if they need to find more structure on the job in order to be more present personally off the job. Those are the types of people that I know that I can help and I'm working with. People who want to be more present and positively impact their relationships personally and professionally is who I'll work with for sure.
That's outstanding. So how can folks get a hold of you for either thing, for if they're in the business of buying or selling, or sure, if they do need some coaching?
Right. So all of my contact information for real estate's on our website, rogerslongteam.com, ROGERS long LONG team.com. My cell phone's on there, my email's on there. All of that goes to one account. So for anything they need, I'll be available for them right there.
That's awesome. That's great. And we'll put that in the notes, links and stuff like that. So whichever way folks get that. No problem. Absolutely. Thanks for coming on, spending your time, telling your story. For all that you've done with us, I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Yeah, man.
Best of luck. If I hear anything, I'll definitely refer you.
Thank you.
I can tell you're the right guy for the job to help folks out. You've definitely helped us for sure.
Kevin, if you don't mind, you had asked me if I had a favorite quote. I wanted to share one with you that I thought was good.
Absolutely.
I'm reading the football coaching Bible right now. Believe it or not, somebody asked me what I was doing to try to work on becoming a coach. I said, look, anything I'm reading right now, it's either written by a coach or it has the word coach in the title of it,
Gotcha.
But this is from he actually played center for the Packers when they won their very first Super Bowl. Played for the Colts for a little bit, and then he was a very well-respected college coach. His name is Bill Curry. But in the football coaching Bible, he said the following. He said, "We respect leaders and we know what they look like. We especially respect leaders who function with purpose and presence of mind, who are calm when all hell is breaking loose, who are brave when their necks are in the noose, who are not intimidated when the enemy is talented and elusive. Great coaches know how to extract every ounce of our energy. People see that, and it resonates with them. They crave it. They take it and us into their hearts." Bill Curry, the football coaching Bible.
I think it's an outstanding way to sign off, man. That's deep. That's awesome. I have to look that up and kind of study it, get more into it. But Ben Rogers, thank you very much for your friendship, your professionalism, all the stuff that you've done, and for coming on. 30th episode, I really appreciate it. This is
man.
fun.
Thanks very much.
Cross data on the podcast sphere for sure. And good luck with everything that you're doing.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, Kevin. Have a good one, brother.
No problem. Thank you again, everyone that's come back. That if you're a first-time listener, thanks for checking us out, listening to my conversation with Ben. You can reach us at betweentheslides.com, at PannellKG, PANNELLKG, on Twitter and Instagram, and Between the Slides Facebook page. If you have any questions about this content, any previous episodes, you want to share how you do incident management, project management, your people, your process, what you do every day, certainly hit us up. My email also is kp.bts.podcast@gmail.com. Happy to help how I can and share and get you the resources that I know of. Take care and Godspeed.